Just 1 century ago, the kingdom of Galifar spanned most of Khorvaire. Of course, we never tamed the lands beyond the Grey Wall Mountains or the jungles of the east. Nevertheless, it was impressive, this kingdom of humanities. Now I look at the map of Khorvaire with a touch of despair. Galifar lies shattered, the 5 nations irreparably divided. So many new realms claim sovereignty, kingdoms of elves and goblins. And what of this nation of monsters called Droam? Can it last, or will another war fracture us further? Should I dwell on such things when the morning might simply consume us all? Gods, how I fear the future. The inn's lanterns came alive 1 window at a time, as if a dragon were taking a slow, warm breath. Copper pans hissed in the kitchen. Strings plucked a cheerful tune, and the halfling hostess of House Galanda glided between tables, radiating the particular certainty that no blade would be drawn under her roof. I, Ethan, chose the corner beneath the carved gold drake and polished my breastplate until it mirrored the topaz steamlight. Important. Presentation shapes perception. Perception shapes outcomes. Also, that smudge by the collar ridge had been intolerable. My companions, 62% love, 38% annoyance, 3 newly freed constructs who I knew still wore the posture of their command words from battles future past. I snapped a cloth, made a show of buffing the spell shard, 1% shard, 99% altered novel, and conducted the ritual assessment we're here for. Halfling hostess, Galanda marks her silhouette visible. Threat, negligible. Opportunity, high. Hers was a sanctuary of comfort and hot stew. Us automatons need not sustenance, but the taste is still effective. 2 humans with Cannith signet rings. Their threat, moderate. Likelihood of inspection pretext, 27%. I explained the counter-response. Remain within Galanda protection. Kundarak Vault Runner by the hearth, a brigand and thief. Threat, dormant. Opportunity assessed worthy. Lines of credit stored for later use, if we ever agree what credit means, when we inevitably brass off the guards doing our so-called errands. And if we require a method of escape, 80% chance of misdemeanor with a 20% chance of pleasure-seeking. Brothers and sister, I said, smoothing a plate in an orbited motion, we begin. This dusk we speak of the world we share, swiftly, at a glance, so you may choose how to stand in it. I cradled the polished dragon shard, carved to the weight of a book, but bright as dawnlight on my onyx arm in the morning, and whispered the key. Do you think I am an automaton? A machine without feelings or a soul? Passphrase accepted, the shard chimed in a robotic voice within a symmetrical rhythm. A river of glyphs unfurled across its heart, and the chapter sigil burned steady. Chapter 1. Eberron at a glance. Every child knows the story of the Progenitor Dragons, Siberys, Eberron, and Khyber. In the dawn of time, these 3 cosmic beings created 13 planes of existence, each embodying a concept. Their final work was the material plane, where all ideas would become manifest, a realm that could know war and peace, life and death, order and chaos. But cruel Khyber sought ultimate dominion over this new reality. She struck Siberys without warning and tore him apart. Eberron wrestled with Khyber and bound the traitor in her coils, but could not defeat her. So, Eberron became a living prison, a world that would forever contain Khyber's evil. Almost every culture in the world shares this story as a myth that explains the world. Shattered Siberys became the ring of golden dragon shards wrapped around the planet, said to be the source of magic. Eberron is the world, the source of all natural life. And Khyber is the Underdark and the source of aberrations and fiends, forever struggling against her bonds and yearning to destroy the world above. Magic is built into the very fabric of the world. It pervades everyday life. It provides comforts and conveniences unknown. Great cities where castles scrape the sky prosper throughout the continent of Khorvaire. And a thriving aristocracy of merchant families controls much of the world's economy thanks to the edge given them by the mysterious and rare dragon marks. Its people harness magic as a tool to build cities, to sail ships through the skies, and to create both wonders and weapons. The technology of Eberron has developed not through the advance of science, but by the mastery of magic. The widespread use of magic pervades life in the cities and towns. Airships and rail transport make rapid travel across the continent possible. A working class of minor mages, called Majorites, uses spells to provide energy and other necessities. Advances in magic item creation have led to everything from self-propelled farming implements to sentient, free-willed beings created in artificers' forges. With the aid of rare crystals called dragon shards, dragon marks can be made more powerful, elementals can be controlled and harnessed, and magic items can be crafted and shaped. An excellent system of roads connects the central nations of Khorvaire. Travelers sometimes make their way by horse or coach, which might employ draft animals mage-bred by House Vidalis for speed or endurance. However, the more efficient means of travel is by two distinct means. The two main options provide long-distance travel across land. Major cities in Khorvaire are linked by the lightning rail of House Orion, which allows many travelers to avoid the perils and tedium of the roads. The lightning rail uses bound elementals to pull a train of carriages over a path of magical stones, between which a rail-like stream of lightning arcs. When speed is an issue, countless travelers book passage on a House Lyrandar airship, which uses a bound elemental to hold a ship aloft and propel it through the air. Topaz steamlight once again pooled warm across the common room of the Gold Dragon Inn as the warforged creator Ethan set the polished dragon shard on a clean square of linen and, unable to bear a single smear, gave it one last unnecessary buff and puff. A quick, quiet tally of the room followed. Garlander wards steady, no hostile intent detected. Then the passphrase left their lips. The shard answered with a chime like thin crystal struck once. Lines of pale fire braided from facet to facet, and a translucent shard hovered above the table and spoke in a circadian rhythm once more. 100% accepted. Welcome, Ethan. Enjoy your lecture. Chapter 2. History of Eberron. There are patterns hidden in the world. Secrets lie in the conjunctions of the planes and moons, in strange symbols formed by the flowing lava of a volcanic eruption or the fissures caused by an earthquake. Carved in the walls of ancient citadels and on primeval megaliths, knot patterns appear to have meaning that only the contemplative mind can hope to comprehend. To those who can read them, these myriad events and signs form a map of possible futures, a map that can be used to shape the course of history. Scholars call this map the Draconic Prophecy, attributing it to the progenitor. Dragons, Eberron, Siberys, and Khyber. The prophecy is vast and complex, its signs scattered across the world. Few humans or even elves have the time or resources to unravel its secrets. The foremost students of the prophecy are ancient dragons, immortal fiends, and others who have devoted thousands of years to this work. The prophecy is a map that shows many possible futures, along with the steps that must occur to make that future a reality. Many a scribe has attempted, incorrectly, to transmute the scripture into a viable solution, always to no avail. Conspiracy theorists insist that a network of dragons is hidden in Khorvaire, and these mighty creatures use powerful magic and humanoid agents to work their will across the continent and beyond. These claims are usually dismissed as madness, but they are in fact correct. The Chamber is a cabal of dragons that have monitored Khorvaire for thousands of years, treating humanoids as pawns in an ancient game. First and foremost, the dragons of the Chamber are observers, gathering information about new aspects of the prophecy and sharing it with their elders in Argonnessen. They are also charged with stopping any creature that seeks to use the prophecy for its own ends. This responsibility sets them against the Lords of Dust, who must manipulate the prophecy in order to release their fiendish overlords. It also leads them to recruit or eliminate any humanoid who learns too much about the prophecy. The Chamber is loosely organized. Each dragon monitors its own small corner of the world and maintains a network of humanoid agents. Although the mission of the Chamber is one of observation, individual dragons often have their own agendas. Some seek to manipulate the prophecy personally, directing the future along a particular path. Others conduct experiments on dragon-marked humanoids, trying to understand the connection between these creatures and the prophecy. Still others are obsessed with the Lords of Dust in century-spanning games of cat and mouse with their fiendish counterparts. In general, the Chamber seeks to maintain the status quo and opposes demons, so agents of the Chamber can often be useful allies or patrons. But ultimately, humanoids are just pawns in the dragon's eyes, and they readily sacrifice any of those pawns to ensure the sanctity of the prophecy and the defeat of the Lords of Dust. The Lords of Dust are evil entities spawned at the dawn of time who still haunt Eberron. The cities raised by those ancient overlords are now only ashes, but the Lords of Dust still dream of restoring their primordial dominion. These fiends have been biding their time in an inconceivably long game, sparring with the dragons of Argonnessen as they manipulate events in order to fulfill the words of the draconic prophecy in a way that will bring them victory. Another tale shared across cultures describes one more conflict that occurred in the first age of the world. Long ago, powerful archfiends known as the Overlords and their armies of Rakshasa and lesser fiends dominated Eberron. Forces of light, some versions of the story, say the 9 gods of the sovereign host. Others say an alliance of dragons and celestials eventually defeated the overlords. But these fiends couldn't be destroyed. Instead, their immortal essences were bound in Khyber. Whatever the true details of this tale, this much is true. If the overlords ever break their bonds, the consequences would be catastrophic. Over the course of millennia, numerous civilizations rose only to fall. Giants built mighty kingdoms on the continent of Zendrik that were devastated by a war with the dragons of Argonnessen. The Goblin Empire of Duch ruled Khorvaire until its reign was shattered by an invading army of mind flayers, beholders, and the foul creatures that created them. Today, these civilizations are known only through the remnants left behind. For hundreds of years, the continent of Khorvaire was united under the kingdom of Galifar. This peace came to an end with the death of King Jarot in 894 YK, just over a century ago. Conflict over the succession spiraled into outright war between the 5 nations. The last war was a bitter struggle that forever changed the shape of Khorvaire. It was a century marked by shifting alliances, with years of stalemate interspersed with periods of intense battles. This grueling conflict left deep scars on the land and the people, but there was worse to come. On 20 Olaroon 994 YK, the nation of Sire was consumed in a magical cataclysm now known as the Mourning. The cause of the Mourning remains unknown. Many fear it was caused by unbridled use of war magic. Shock and fear brought the nations to the negotiating table, and the last war came to an end in 996 YK with the Treaty of Thronehold. The nations of Khorvaire all employed different forms of battle magic during the war. Aundair fielded the greatest number of wizards, while Breland produced floating fortresses and other engines of war. The nation of Carnath embraced the practice of necromancy and animated hordes of undead soldiers. In the final decades of the war, House Cannith created the Warforged, tireless soldiers formed of metal and other materials. The Treaty of Thronehold forbade the creation of new Warforged and granted freedom to those that survived the conflict. Warforged now seek places to call home across Khorvaire, but these living weapons struggle to find their place in a world at peace. Although many celebrated the end of the war, others remain unsatisfied with its outcome. No one won the war. Even though people optimistically refer to it as the last war, most believe that it's only a matter of time until conflict begins anew. The mystery of the morning is the only thing holding the warmongers at bay. If someone uncovers the secret of the morning, if it can be proven that the morning can't happen again, or if its power could be harnessed as a weapon, war could erupt again. Until then, the nations remain in a cold war as each makes preparations and seeks advantages in a conflict that could lie ahead. No other group exerts as much influence over the 5 nations as the combined membership of the dragon-marked houses. Each dragon-marked house is part noble family and part business cartel, involved in businesses ranging from hospitality to espionage for hire. The reach of the houses is so extensive that they have interests in every facet of life in the civilized lands of Khorvaire and beyond. Those interests often bring them into conflict with local rulers and national governments. Unified Galifar had the strength and influence to impose its will on the collected dragon-marked houses, but in the wake of the war, it remains to be seen if any single nation has the resources to challenge them. Although most houses have distinct spheres of interest, their concerns overlap just enough to cause friction. House Orion's control of transportation and shipping is threatened by the growing reach of House Lyrandar's airships. House Tharashk's arrangement with Drome threatens House Deneth's monopoly on providing mercenary services. House Cannith lost its leadership in the morning, and rival barons are fighting for control of the house. An organization called the 12 seeks to mediate disputes and encourage cooperation between the houses. The dragon-marked houses generally thrived during the last war. Each house's unique talents were easily adapted to the war effort. Ostensibly neutral in the conflict, the houses made huge profits by selling services and material to every nation involved in the war. For all the houses, ultimately, the war years were a time of vigorous growth and increased influence. In some ways, though, the dragon-marked houses did feel the brunt of the conflict. House Cannith, for instance, suffered great setbacks near the end of the war. Many of its foundries and factories were destroyed, and the Treaty of Thronehold forced the house to dismantle the creation forges that produced the Warforged. Worst of all, for the house, the destruction of Sire left Cannith without a clear leader, resulting in the house being fragmented into 3 semi-independent branches. In another major development, House Thorani broke away from House Fielan during the war, in part because of the conflicts of interest that arose within an espionage organization that was being called on to serve multiple sides in a complex conflict. Topaz Steamlight sighed through a brass throat above the table, its warm haze tinting the polished dragon shard, the pale orange tint of late afternoon. The Gold Dragon Inn settled into its second quiet, plates cooling, fire steady, when the door's bell rang and a compact figure stepped in, leather apron cross-buckled, wand holstered at the wrist, hammer at the hip. A mage-right and wandslinger both, the inn's blacksmith drifted to the counter with a crate of knives. One neat gesture and a ribbon of runes leapt from her wand. The broken edges of the knives knitted back together. A dozen blades whispered themselves to sleep, once again sharp. At the corner table, the Warforged creator paused mid-polish, satisfied at last, and set the shard upon a folded square of linen. The passphrase was spoken, Map lines of amber trace themselves in the steam-lit air. Coasts, crowns, frontiers, while thread-like filaments reach gently for the waiting minds of the automatons. 75.6% chance of fact, 24.4% chance of embellishment. Chapter 3. Realms and Nations of Eberron. The continent of Khorvaire was once largely unified under the Kingdom of Galifar. Today Khorvaire is split into many nations, some old, others newly born from the crucible of war. A number of famous nations litter the continent. Fertile farmlands surround the grand cities of Khorvaire. The floating towers of Arcanix are the finest institute for mystical study in Khorvaire, and magic is deeply ingrained in Khorvairian culture. The nation produces more mage rites and wandslingers than any other in Khorvaire. From the nobles lounging in the towers of Fairhaven, to the common folk working the vast vineyards of Bluevine, Khorvairians value wit and wisdom. Khorvairians prefer finesse to brute force and appreciate cunning wordplay and fine fashions. The sovereign host is the dominant faith of Khorvaire, with a particular devotion to Orion. However, the Silver Flame also maintains a devoted following. Some might say overzealous. Although Khorvaire is a small nation, its arcane superiority allowed it to retain its dominion during the last war. The people of Khorvaire know that knowledge is power, and they take pride in their nation's magical advancements. To ensure her nation's prosperity and dominance, Queen Aurela Irwinan instituted the Arcane Initiative, an aggressive series of programs intended to forward the development of mystical infrastructure and battle magic. Before the war, the Arcane Congress served all Galifar. The most promising students from across Khorvaire came to study at Arcanix, and students from Khorvaire, Sire, and Khorvaire worked together to win honor in the trials of the Ninefold Path. Known to students simply as the Nine, this contest pits students of the 8 traditions against one another in a series of arcane challenges, along with a 9th bracket for those who have yet to select a tradition. Teamwork, independence, memorization, innovation. The 9 challenges competitors on many levels, and the finest wizards of Galifar were invariably champions of the 9. Thanks to the Treaty of Thronehold, students of all nations once again study side by side in the towers of Arcanix, but no treaty or ritual can easily dispel the tensions of a century of war. Over the last year, we've reported on a number of hate crimes in the towers fueled by nationalist passions. Optimistic teachers hope that the 9 will showcase the diversity that has evolved over the course of the past century, highlighting Carnathi advances in necromancy and evocation, siren illusions, and more. But privately, professors fear that the competitive aspect of the 9 will inflame nationalist tension. Some even believe that the lives of foreign students could be endangered should they defeat Khorvairian champions. Only time will tell if the 9 can bring them together as it once did, or if it will divide them further apart. In the Demon Wastes, rivers of lava cut across plains of black sand and volcanic glass. The only vegetation consists of blood-red moss and a thick layer of shimmering slime. A jagged rock formation might be a piece of an ancient wall if you stretch your imagination. Tens of thousands of years ago, fiends ruled Khorvaire. The Demon Wastes held the seat of power for some of the mightiest archfiends, home to cities of Rakshasas and demons. Most of these foul entities perished or fled long ago, but a few still linger in this place, even as new ones crawl up from the depths of Khyber. A handful of primordial ruins sustained by dark magic dot the bleak landscape, ruins that may still be home to fiends and their treasures. The Stone Cage, Shadow Crags, and Icehorn Mountains separate the Demon Wastes from the Eldene Reaches. A series of canyons, known as the Labyrinth, further separate the Demon Wastes from the rest of Khorvaire. Due to ancient warding magic, any creature that wishes to leave must do so through the Labyrinth. These passes are guarded by the Kashkala, tribes of orcs sworn to contain the evils of the wastes. Beyond the labyrinth, the mortal inhabitants of the demon wastes include a brutal people known as the Carrion tribes. Each tribe is devoted to an archfiend, and they engage in endless battles against the Kashkala and the other Carrion tribes. Destroyed at the end of the last war, Sire now exists only in the hearts of the refugees scattered across Khorvaire. Before the war, Sire was the seat of the kings and queens of Galifar. The wealth of the kingdom flowed through Sire, and it was a nexus for commerce and culture. By tradition, Sire's Princess Mishan had the rightful claim to the throne of Galifar. Sirens take pride that they alone were in the right in the last war, but they unquestionably lost more to the war than any other nation. Sirens like to say that their culture represented the best that Galifar had to offer, which is to say a little bit of everything. Sirens value diversity and versatility, both in talents and thought. Sire couldn't match Karnath in martial discipline or Onder in the arcane arts, but the flexibility of its forces reflected the nation's ideals. Goblins and their kin have always been part of Khorvaire. Their ancient empire spread across the lands now held by other nations, and goblin foundations still stand underneath many human cities. This empire collapsed into savagery, and when humans arrived from Sarlona, they drove the goblins from their ancestral lands. Thus, goblins have long been a disenfranchised people, living in the shadows of newer nations or in wild lands shunned by humans. The land now called Dargun was once part of Sire. The hobgoblin clans known as the Kaldar were based in the Seawall Mountains, but during the war, the demand for mercenaries drew an ever-increasing number of goblins out of the mountains to fight for Sire and Breland. Late in the war, a brilliant hobgoblin named Lesh Haruk Sharatkor recognized that the goblins had become the dominant military power in the region. Uniting the Kaldar under his banner, Haruk seized the territory he was supposed to protect. The five nations were unprepared, and Breland quickly negotiated an alliance with Haruk to secure the border. Sire fought the goblins until the day of mourning, but the majority of delegates involved in forging the Treaty of Thronehold chose to recognize the nation of Dargun. Khyber, the realms below. The common creation myth contends that when the Progenitor Dragons fought, Eberron trapped Khyber in her coils and became the world, imprisoning her evil sibling in a living prison. Bound within the world, Khyber spawns demons and monsters to plague the children of Eberron. This might be myth and metaphor, but it's also a description of fact. There are worlds within the world, realms inhabited by aberrations, fiends, and all manner of monsters. Anytime someone descends below the surface of the world, they enter Khyber. But the underworld takes two very different forms. First is the natural realm, networks of tunnels and caverns formed from stone and soil. These passages are dark and dangerous, but they're exactly what you expect to find in an underground realm. Such passages might be home to carrion crawlers, giant beetles, or clans of kobolds. But ultimately, these mundane caverns follow the laws of nature. There's another aspect to Khyber. Go deep enough and you find a seemingly endless array of demiplanes, each stranger than the last. When descending into a chasm, the would-be traveler could find a labyrinth inhabited by demons, or discover a realm consisting of the guts of a colossal living creature. Anything is possible in Khyber, and these worlds within are home to all manner of terrors. The demiplanes of Khyber are not concretely tied to the world above. An intrepid adventurer or traveler could observe a passage in Breland that leads into a disturbing subterranean swamp filled with oozes and slimes. After traveling what seems to be a few miles, travelers may emerge from a different tunnel in Zendrik, half a world away from where they began. The Mirror holds demonstrate this mystery. Over the past century, the dwarves discovered a vast subterranean kingdom within the Ironroot Mountains. Most of these halls rest in the natural layers of Khyber. The halls connect to one another in logical cartographic order, but as the ancient dwarves dug deeper, they opened passages into the unnatural realms and unleashed the hordes of the Delca-Dirn the Corruptor. Passages to Dirn's realm also exist in the Shadow Marches, on the opposite side of Khorvaire. The Corruptor's domain doesn't necessarily stretch across the entire world, although the portals to the worlds in which they connect within defy natural law. These connections impact the world in a number of ways. Dark forces often rise anywhere in the world, bursting out of a previously unknown portal to Khyber. This fact dictates the primary mission of the Church of the Silver Flame: to stand ready to defend the innocent from such unnatural threats. Because the demiplanes connect to the world at random, many armies and sages are often conflicted on what an adventurer may find within the depths. The many layers of Khyber share similarity only in their strangeness and deadliness. Eberron is the natural world. Khyber is the source of fiends and monstrosities and the domain of the alien Delca. Some cults of the dragon below believe that paradise awaits them in the veil of the inner sun. But such cultists consider gibbering mouthers and mind flayers to be creatures of beauty. Any follower of the Sovereign Host knows this story about Xen'drik. In the dawn of time, the Sovereigns bound the fiendish overlords and freed the world from chaos. The mighty giants had fought alongside the Sovereigns, and in gratitude, Orion granted them dominion over the continent of Xen'drik. Orion taught giants the secrets of wizardry, and they grew powerful. The giants built towers that touched the sky and seemingly endless cities. The mightiest among the giants was the Titan Khorvaire. His power was so great that he pulled the 13th moon from the sky and crushed it in a fit of anger. The giants ruled many lesser races, and eventually the elves rose up against them. Khorvaire unleashed plagues upon the rebellious elves. He made assassins of elven shadows and turned them back against their owners. Still, the rebels persisted. In his anger, Khorvaire prepared to pull down the rest of the moons to hurl them at his enemies, even though he'd destroy the world in doing it. But the giants had gone too far, and Orion set the dragons of Argonessen upon them. The dragons destroyed the vast cities and leveled the towers. Khorvaire was slain, and his people scattered. The Sovereigns and Six each laid a curse upon the land. Orion decreed that the creatures of Xen'drik would have no knowledge of law, and Boldrai proclaimed that no city would stand. The Traveller distorted the land so that no path followed twice. The Devourer unleashed fire and storm, and so Xen'drik remains a land of mystery, a realm that cannot be mapped, a place that holds secrets that could shatter the world. This story bears at least some truth. The elves were once slaves of the ancient giants, and the dragons did eradicate the civilizations of Xen'drik. Great magic has warped the land. The environments of Xen'drik are extreme and unpredictable, and travelers might find a glacial expanse in the midst of a vast desert. Tens of thousands of years have passed, yet no civilization has risen to the heights of the fallen giants. Some believe that Orion's and Boldri's curses ensure that any city that grows too large collapses into madness. The Traveller's curse twists space, and explorers might follow the same path twice, only to end up in entirely different locations. Xen'drik is a continent that defies control. Expeditions have unearthed artifacts of immense power, as well as fields of Siberys dragon shards, but once a being leaves a site, they might never find it again. Giants still roam Xen'drik, but these creatures have never regained the glory of their ancestors. Tribes of drow, said to be the shadow assassins created by the Emperor Khorvaire, linger in the darkness. Chapter 4. The Great Wheel Cosmology. Eberron is part of the Great Wheel of the Multiverse. Similar to the Forgotten Realms with cities such as Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate, and the world of Krynn, with cities such as Solace and Palanthus, famous to the inhabitants who reside there. At the same time, it is fundamentally apart from the rest of the Great Wheel, sealed off from the other planes, even while it's encircled by its own wheeling cosmology. Eberron's unique station in the multiverse is an important aspect of the world. Its planes have profound and shifting influences on the material plane, and it is sheltered from the influences and machinations of gods and other powers elsewhere on the Great Wheel. The planet of Eberron is the heart of its own material plane. It is surrounded by the Ring of Siberys. Beyond this band of dragon shards, 13 moons orbit the world. To date, no creature from Eberron has explored the moons, and none can say whether they are lifeless rocks or thriving worlds. Some sages believe that the moons are connected to the planes, or that they might even be physical extensions of the planes, but the truth of these assertions remains unknown. No other planets have been discovered within Eberron's material plane. The underworld of Khyber, however, contains a host of demiplanes, tiny pockets of altered reality. As such, venturing beneath the surface of Eberron can lead you to a network of caverns and passages, and if a traveller finds the right passage, it can take you to fantastic and deadly places inhabited by fiends, aberrations, and other children of Khyber. It is theoretically possible to travel between Eberron and other worlds in the multiverse by means of the deep ethereal, or various spells designed for planar travel. But the cosmology of Eberron is specifically designed to prevent such travel, to keep the world hidden away from the meddling of gods, celestials, and fiends from beyond the Great Wheel of Eberron. The three progenitor worms work together to form Eberron and its planes as a new cosmic system in the depths of the ethereal plane. They recreated the elves, orcs, dragons, and other races found throughout the multiverse and placed them in their new world, but allowed them to develop beyond the reach of Grumsh, Corellon, Lolth, and other influences for good and ill. Chapter 5. Faiths. Most Khorvairians acknowledge the pantheon of the sovereign host and its malign shadow, the Dark Six. The Dark Six are the shadows of the sovereign host. These dark gods shape the world and are present at all times, speaking to those willing to hear them. Where the sovereigns govern positive forces, the Dark Six are the source of fears. Arowai and Balinor reflect the positive aspects of nature. The devastating storm, the earthquake, the wildfire. These are the work of the Devourer. The Dark Six and the Sovereign Host are opposite sides of the same coin. If you believe in one, you acknowledge the existence of the other. The only question is whether you fear the Six or revere them. Those who choose to follow these sinister deities embrace darkness. A barbarian may thank the Fury for the gift of rage. An assassin walks the path of the mockery, while a warlock's pact may be a gift of the shadow. The Dark Six inspire worship in different ways among diverse cultures. Temples to the Dark Six appear in Droam, along with wild revels driven by the Fury. The Dark Six aren't worshipped openly elsewhere in Khorvaire. The gods' shrines are hidden, and it's more common to find a cult devoted to a single member of the Six than a temple dedicated to the entire pantheon. Although the Six are united, they hold differing aspects and perspectives on the world of Eberron. The Devourer governs the destructive power of nature, both pure elemental force and savagery in beasts. The Keeper snatches souls before they can reach Dolur and hoards them along with his vast wealth. Those driven by greed call him their patron, and his priests often act as criminal fixers. The Fury governs both passion and revenge, rage and despair. She offers revenge to those who have been wronged, but her vengeance often leads to suffering. The Mocker is the patron of treachery and terror in battle. He guides those who seek victory through guile, both warriors and assassins. He was once the brother of Dol Dawn and Dol Ara, but he was stripped of his skin, and his name after betraying them. The shadow is the dark side of knowledge and ambition. It's said to be Orion's shadow, given malign life when Orion mastered magic. The shadow is the maker of monsters and the keeper of forbidden secrets, and it offers malevolent spells to warlocks and wizards. The Traveller asserts that chaos drives evolution and that change makes us stronger. The Traveller is a trickster and the giver of dangerous gifts. Some artificers worship the Traveller, seeing it as the lord of innovation, but the gifts of the Traveller always have unexpected consequences. The pantheon of the sovereign host embodies all that is good in the world. The people of Khorvaire have followed the sovereigns for thousands of years, and everyone knows the names of the sovereigns and the Dark Six. Even people who aren't devout might still swear by the sovereigns or offer a prayer in a moment of crisis. Similar to the Dark Six, the sovereign host also hold differing aspects and perspectives. Arowai is the sovereign of life and love. She is the patron of fertility and of the benevolent aspects of nature, bringing good harvest and gentle rain. Orion is the sovereign of law and law. He is considered the first wizard who shared the secrets of wizardry with the world. Balinor is the sovereign of horn and hunt. He guides both the beast and the hunter, and he is the patron of those who walk on the edge of civilization and the natural world. Boldre is the sovereign of hall and hearth. She guides and protects communities and families, inspiring people to work together for the common good. Dol Ara is the sun that drives away the darkness. She stands for wisdom in war and for those who fight with honor, pursue justice, and make sacrifices for the greater good. Dol Dawn is the sovereign of strength and steel. He is the patron of the common soldier, and he guides the hands of anyone who holds a weapon. He embodies courage, strength, and martial skill. Kolkaran is the sovereign of world and wealth. He guards travelers and guides traders. Kolkaran guides fair negotiation. Those driven solely by greed prefer the keeper of the Dark Six. Oladrua is the sovereign of feast and fortune. She is the giver of joy and the granter of luck, patron to entertainers, gamblers, and anyone who takes a chance. Onatar is the sovereign of fire and forge. He guides both mundane smiths and artificers, inspiring anyone who performs an act of creation. The Church of the Silver Flame is famous within Eberron, and every Thrain child knows the story of Tira Miron. Centuries ago, one of the ancient and powerful demons chained within the world broke free from its bonds, unleashing terrible suffering on the people of Thrain. The nation would have been destroyed if not for Tira Miron. This paladin was called by the Silver Flame and battled the mighty fiend. When it became clear that the Overlord couldn't be destroyed, Tira gave her life, combining her spirit with the light of the Silver Flame to bind the demon once more. Now, Tira serves as the voice of the flame, helping others find the light. Anyone who seeks to protect the innocent and battle evil can draw on the power of the Silver Flame to aid them, but they must beware of the shadow in the flame, the demon that still lingers and yearns to trick good people into evil. Blue-white arcs chased one another along the conductor stones as the Orion lightning rail whispered through the night. In a brass-trimmed compartment, the Warforged creator set a polished dragon shard on the fold-out table, inspected their reflection in the window with appreciation. Chapter 6: Magic and Travel. The 5 nations were built on a magical foundation. To them, magic is a form of science, which can be studied and taught. Nevertheless, few people possess the skill required to become a wizard or an artificer, and higher-skilled magic remains rare. Resurrection and teleportation aren't part of everyday life, but citizens often harness lesser magical practices and use them for the common good. Artisans called magerites provide much of this magic. Compared to a wizard or an artificer, a magerite's knowledge of magic is narrow. A locksmith might master magic, through the arcane lock and knock spells to supplement the use of physical tools. A mage rite healer may focus on restoring brief ailments and curing wounds from battles through science, with a will to provide their service of healing to any who require it. Common magical trinkets are widespread, and the crystals known as dragon shards serve as the fuel of the magical economy and are used in items that amplify the powers of dragon marks. Thanks to the industrious innovation of multiple dragon-marked houses and workshops full of mage rites, the people of Khorvaire can cross the continent in a week or less using magical means. The lightning rail and vessels powered by bound elementals and operated by the dragon-marked houses can carry passengers as far in an hour as a horse can walk in a day. The wondrous lightning rail system once linked the far reaches of the kingdom of Galifar prior to the last war. Now the system is divided, split into eastern and western circuits. The airship is the most advanced elemental-powered vehicle on Eberron, the pride of House Lyrandar and the forerunner of the magical advances that many hope will become commonplace in the aftermath of the last war. The first airships emerged from the Canith and Zelago workshops and appeared in House Lyrandar's service just 8 years ago, in 990 YK. For now, though, they remain rare, because the sawwood required for their construction is exceedingly scarce and tightly controlled. Sawwood is a form of buoyant timber found only on the island of Eberron, and the elves who live there limit their annual harvest of the precious wood. As a result, production of new airships proceeds at a snail's pace, unable to satisfy the fervent demand for new vessels. The discovery of a new supply of sawwood could literally change the world, and even convincing the elves of Eberron to part with more of it would be an achievement worth a handsome reward from House Lyrandar. Individual stations do have distinct touches that reflect local features. For example, the station in Gatherhold in the Talenta Plains is decorated with traditional halfling motifs and offers specialized stables for travelers leaving their previous means of travel behind. On a larger scale, the station at Passage, which is the seat of power for House Orion, is a multi-storied structure designed as a monument to the majesty and storied history of the house. The Warforged creator, satisfied and gleaming, closed the shard. Threats in the room? None. Opportunities? Several. 100% chance that tomorrow would hold another chapter. Tonight, the dragon shards simply shone, hushed by the Warforger's attunement. He glances upward at his fellow Warforged, oil slightly running down his version of a lip. Remember, brothers and sister, if at first you don't succeed, then skydiving from an airship may simply just not be for you. He tilted his gaze eastward with a slight chuckle, ready to see what wonders of Eberron would present themselves to a fellow wanderer.